This is an E21 BMW. This is the last year that they made them. 3 Series BMW, popular, absolutely iconic car. But this is like the 3 Series that nobody wanted. So this followed the BMW 2002, the first of the new class sedans, and those were an absolute revolution. People ate them up, they loved them. Sporty, fun cars, light cars. And then this was meant to replace it, first 3 Series. So in the United States, they sold the 320. And they were a lot softer, a lot more luxurious, a lot more refined, a lot more insulation, smoother ride, and everybody hated it, I guess, because everybody loved the 2002 for its sportiness. So these have kind of become, I guess, the oddball of the 3 Series, where if you want something classic and small and iconic for 3 Series, you get a 2002, but those are getting more expensive. And if you want something that's more refined and daily drivable and livable, you get an E30. And there's no reason to get an E21 except for to buy one to part it out to put parts in 2002. This one popped up on local Craigslist for an undisclosed price. There's none listed. I shot him an offer and went to go look the next day. And it's a one-owner vehicle, 90,000 miles. And I won't tell you how much I paid, but it was a good price. We loaded it up on the trailer, brought it back here, and the history that we know about it is it's sat since 1991. You can see the Fairfax County sticker says 1990. The plates still say 1991. And as far as I know, it hasn't ran since then. And it doesn't move, doesn't have a clutch, doesn't have brakes, doesn't have any of that. So the video you're about to watch is going to be the week-and-a-half process that I went through to get this started, running, driving, stopping, shipping.
Here you can see some shots of it on the trailer the day that we picked it up. And upcoming is a clip of us rolling it off the trailer when we got it home. There's no brakes, no power steering, car doesn't start, doesn't move on its own. So gravity was our friend. Here you'll see some pictures of the interior and the underside. So the reason we bought it was because it was rust free, and the interior, while a little tattered, can be improved easily. We first drained the fuel out. We pulled the internal in-tank fuel pump and fuel sending unit, pretty gross, and started to tear into the fuel system from the outside as well.
Okay, so we're here on the E21. We have battery charging, and so far we have replaced the fuel pump and cleaned the fuel accumulator in the rear, along with a new fuel filter, all of which are located under the car, which you will not be able to see presently. It's an interesting situation on the late model E21s. They have an external fuel pump for the high pressure fuel, and then they also have a lift pump, which I'm currently waiting on a shipment that includes that pump. So for now, we just have the fuel line dipped into the tank, and we have now jumped the fuel pump relay so that we always have fuel pressure. And these have what's called a continuous injection system, CIS, or the formal name is the KE, I believe, Jetronic injection system, which is the second, I guess, evolution of the mechanical Bosch fuel injection system. And this one includes lambda control, which is the E part of it. So anyway, so the fuel pressure comes up from the fuel tank and from the fuel accumulator and the external fuel pump, and it comes up and feeds into this unit right here, which is the fuel distribution block. So there's a feed line here, and then I believe this is the return. And the cool thing is all of the fuel injectors actually run off of continuous fuel pressure and injection. So there's no electronics running to any of these injectors. You can see the one I have in my hand here. So basically, there's always fuel pressure in these lines, and these fuel injectors, I believe, should always be firing. So we've got the engine to run on starting fluid, so we know it has spark and it has air. but now we're chasing down fueling issues. So what we did was we just pulled this injector out and turned the car on, and we saw that this injector was not spraying any fuel. But then we took the injector off of the fuel line here, and we noticed that there was fuel coming out of that. So I can turn the key, and you should be able to see, if you put your finger over this, you can hear noise coming out. And then, I don't know if you'll let me do this quickly. You should be able to see, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see an accumulation of fuel on my finger. And these are constantly injecting. So it seems that we're getting fuel to this line. And so my assistant Tyler here just pulled a muscle doing it, but he tried to blow through this and we weren't able to get any pressure. We took the injector and we just plugged in a compressed air, and we were able to get the injector to start shooting air through it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it now, but I think we're going to try to put it back in and see what happens. So we'll give this a shot. Just turn this on. So we'll plug this back in. This was 14 and a 12. 12 on that. 14 on this. Hopefully, if we turn this, we should build some fuel pressure, I believe. Hopefully you see this start injecting. And then I'll turn the key, see what happens. Yeah. Nothing?
I'm not sure.
Well, to be continued. We will return later.
Alright,
Yep.
pedal to the floor.
Give it another go.
Yeah.
Hey! Yeah, go for it.
Hey! Constant. I kept my foot on the accelerator.
Give it another go without the throttle.
Alright. Without throttle?
Yeah.
So after we cleaned out everything up at the fuel distribution block, it became pretty clear that we were getting mostly air and just a tiny bit of fuel. So the general consensus on the internet and various E21 forums is that the stock braided fuel lines will start to suck in air on the suction side of the fuel pump, the external pump. So while looking back there, I also noticed that the fuel filter that I installed was of a reverse design compared to what the stock filter is. So it was actually on there backwards. I don't know if that actually had any effect on anything, but I went ahead and flipped it. And then the most important discovery when I was flipping this around is that the fuel hose on the suction side of the external fuel pump, which is the canister at the top left of the screen here, that actually was a little bit loose and was sucking in air. So after I replaced the fuel filter off camera, I tightened up that hose, and then after that we were getting solid fuel pressure to the fuel distribution block. And coming up here, you can see a clip after we got the engine started and running on its own, but it was definitely stumbling pretty hard. You can see me reaching inside of the continuous injection unit, pushing up on the vane that actually pumps more fuel into the injectors. And as the engine ran more and more, I was able to get it started for longer, and reach over and grab the distributor and start dialing in the ignition timing by ear. And then eventually in this clip here, you'll see when I got the engine running, you can see the timing light flashing over there where I was trying to set it using that. But we ended up getting the engine running. And then in this upcoming clip, you can see where I'm finally getting the engine up to temp and running and revving it and getting fluids through it. And I left a towel sitting on the exhaust and it caught on fire. So that's not the engine, it's a towel. But yeah, we got it running better. Here's a picture of the distributor. It looks nice and clean. The points look solid. And then eventually we had a running car. You can see me starting it here.
So when we picked up this car, the engine didn't run, but we got that solved already, as you've seen. And the next problem is when you go to push in the clutch, there's no pressure. It just goes straight to the floor, boop, but it comes back. So the coming back is kind of an important part, at least when it comes to diagnosing it. So I'm speaking in past tense here because that's what it did do. So when I bought this, I knew it didn't run, and that was one concern. But the whole not having a clutch part would seem like a big deal to most people unless you understand that the clutch system is actually much more simple than you would imagine. It's just a pedal, and then it has a linkage that goes through. So you'll see here, the clutch pedal, there's a linkage in here that goes through the firewall. And that connects to a plunger in the clutch master cylinder. Now, some vehicles have separate ones where the master cylinder for the brake system is separate, and then there's also a separate reservoir for the clutch master cylinder. This one shares fluid, but the principle is the same. So the master cylinder has a plunger in it, which will pump fluid from the master cylinder, or what's already in the system, down a line to the bottom of the car where there is a slave cylinder. And you'll see a picture of the slave cylinder now. So basically the fluid goes from the master cylinder to the slave cylinder and then pushes a piston out into a shift fork or a clutch fork that then actuates the clutch in and out. So all we had to do was replace this by loosening the brake master cylinder, which is actually still loosed, and the brake booster. Move that out of the way, replace this, connect it to the pedal, and then replace the slave cylinder on the bottom, and now it has a clutch.